I'd like to introduce yourselves, and then you may proceed.
Morning, Commissioners. I am Bob Dowd, Director of Emergency Services for the county.
Bob Hoffman, Architect, Beers and Hoffman.
Joseph Connor, Project Architect, Beers and Hoffman.
And we are waiting on one person who will show up shortly, who is Ned Pelger, Pelger Engineering and Project Manager, Construction Manager.
Well, welcome, and just carry on as you wish.
Yesterday was the due date for the bids, and we had the public bid opening, and very pleased to announce that the bidding came in exactly where we had budgeted. In fact, a little bit under by about $70,000, assuming we add all of the alternates in, which in today's market is unbelievable news. We were expecting the worst and couldn't have asked for a better outcome.
There he is.
Hold the chair. We're only 10 seconds in.
I'm stealing as much of your thunder as I
Strip
could.
searched at the incoming, so Bob Dowd promised.
Assuming you enjoyed that, Ned,
Yeah.
so
Called it a favor.
You were introduced already, so that's not really, Bob was just getting.
As the late guy.
welcome, Mr. Pelger.
That's probably the pocket.
So at this point, I would like to go through and just publicly announce the low bidders in each of the 5 categories that were bid. As the general construction low bidder, oops, I'm sorry.
Could you please tell us from where these people hail? I missed that detail, like where the company is from,
For each, well,
as you go.
Do you have the bid forms?
I do. Yeah, we can.
Sure.
We can,
Easy.
yeah.
Yep. ECI is Dillsburg.
okay. ECI was the low bidder for general construction at a low bid, including alternates, of $15,447,000, and they're out of Dillsburg, Pennsylvania. Fire protection, low bidder was Triangle Fire Protection,
Carlisle.
Carlisle. And their low bid was $684,560. Plumbing low bidder was J.R. Reynolds.
Willis Street, PA.
I'm sorry?
Willis Street.
That's Lancaster.
Yes. That was plumbing, and the bid was $1,087,600. Yeah, sorry, I am reading these with all alternates
Yep.
included. So.
Got that.
HVAC low bid was Fred Litz,
Lancaster.
Lancaster. And their low bid was $3,998,000 even.
Bob, how do you spell that?
F-R-E-Y
And then Litz?
L-U-T-Z.
Okay.
And the final bid was the electrical bid, and that was low bid by Farfield
Litz.
out of Litz. And their bid was $8,451,900.
Thank you, I really appreciate that. Seems like most of them are fairly local, so that's a good
Yes.
thing.
Which is great to see, and
Yeah.
these companies are close enough that I'm sure they,
South Central PA for the most part.
and I believe the project team has experience with a lot of these bidders and speaks highly of them, so I think that we had a good set of bidders, and we got a excellent low bidders, I guess is the best way to put it.
Can you tell me how Danielle gets integrated into all this as our purchaser?
So when the bills start to be submitted, she and I will work together in getting them processed and paid based on the recommendation of Ned will look over all those
Right,
submittals
approve
as
them.
they come through and then process them here.
Okay, so you're gonna make it happen?
Mhm.
So I would like to entertain any questions there are about the numbers at this point.
Could I just talk to the number here? I'm gonna give some accolades a little bit here. You know, we brought, of course, the Beers Hoffman team has worked with us many times before on projects and has done an excellent job with the design and doing, you know, a reasonable design of a building. This is not something that's gonna be, you know, extravagant at all. Materials and things like that are all reasonable. Ned Pelger, as I've mentioned to you all before, was here back 20 years ago. We did the courthouse addition and did a stellar job, in my opinion, which was primarily the reason of going back to Ned to see if he was interested in doing this. And I was a little scared when he first said he'll think about it. But anyway, the bids yesterday, that estimate was developed a year ago, I believe. I feel like it was last December when we finally had a number.
It was, and then we actually went down a little bit from that in our June number.
Right. So think about that. A year ago was before the lumber prices spiked in May, before, you know, concrete prices and steel prices went haywire, and supply is almost impossible in some instances. We've even changed, I think, the types of steel, the I-beams in place of girders, or in places of bar joists, so that the supply could be there. All of that has transpired, and yesterday it came, as Bob said, $70,000 under the $29 million estimate.
Our budget was 0.25% high. So that was, and that's just dumb luck.
Well,
I mean,
I don't
we're
think
not that good.
I don't think
That's
it's some luck,
just-
but it's also, I think, just experience. You know,
my
all
es-
these people being in this business for 30 years and more.
My estimator who did it in June did project that steel was going to keep going up, and a few things were. So he was pretty good.
But we could be in a horrible place today if things had not, you know, had they gone the other way. So this is, you know, a great place for us to be.
And I know that Ned has spent a lot of time on the phone with all of these bidders, you know, finessing their numbers with them and answering their questions and giving, I mean, questions and answers are critical to their bids.
Right.
If they don't get good answers, they can't do good numbers.
The thing I was most pleased about is the low bidder, who is ECI, asked the vast majority of the 270 questions, requests for information, which to me is a crazy amount. But that's, I mean, he every time he could find any discrepancy in the bids or in the bidding documents, he would point it out and say, hey, what should we do here? Because he wanted to make sure that unscrupulous bidders didn't, you know, underbid him and then exploit those situations. And they are known to be a very scrupulous contractor. And so I was very glad to have all these things cleared up, which I think will translate into less unexpected change orders.
I think another thing that's very important is that the bids were very close. So the low bidder, you know, is not a bidder that, you know, we had any concern about missing something or whatever. The bids were incredibly tight, which again I think goes to the fact that the team really did an excellent job when the documentation produces a bid spread that's that good.
15,447,000, the low bidder, 15,660,000, the next bidder.
And so I wonder how the Thanksgiving is going to go between ECI and Lobar owners. I hear they're brothers.
Is that right?
There's different ends of the table.
Fortuitously for them, Lobar actually got a large school project with us in Southern York County, so they're probably fine.
Wow.
And it happens all the time. They're constant.
Well, this worked to our advantage, so we're very grateful.
And I want to add one more thing about the overall project concept here, which was design a building that's going to last a long time and not be overly elaborate. You know, this building was engineered extremely well. You know, we cut out the stuff that really wasn't necessary, and we put money into things that are going to translate into long-term savings and longevity for the building. And I think the project, through that work in the front end, is going to be a very successful project.
I think that tradition was established with this building with its, you know, concrete and granite and marble and things that are going to last and not shortcuts, but things that are going to make a difference in longevity.
Pays off.
So what the group would like today is, if you're inclined, is to get some guidance on moving forward with intents to award and really, kind of get things moving. Realizing the bids were just opened yesterday afternoon, here are all the numbers. It's very straightforward. There are some adds and deletes that were incorporated in there, intended for, subtracting if need be, if these bids would have come in some really unexpected way, and we'd have the ability to trim down a little bit, and a couple of adds that really would make the project better, but we want to discuss today and see if you're ready to move forward with as is or a mixture of.
Yeah.
And I just want to kind of capture the deletes first. Everything that's listed as a delete on here is not something that is truly disposable. It sacrifices functionality, it sacrifices durability. There's a significant hit that we're going to take. We put those in as a way for us to keep this project on track if it came in so far over budget that we had to make some hard decisions. It didn't, which is fantastic, and because of that, I don't think any of the deletes should really be considered at this point. They're all going to sacrifice something significant. As far as the ads go, there's really 3 ads here. One of them is a ceramic tile ad, which it's $35,000, and that will translate into a much longer lasting floor. Should last the life of the building. I think that is a smart direction to go. The other 2 are a snow melt system on the apron of the operations building.
It's the hazmat, essentially.
Yep. That adds.
I have a total of $214,000 in round figures.
About 200.
Yeah, 2,290 to be exact is what it adds to the costs, and the other is electrical charging stations. Total of 12 of them, and that would add $140,000 to the cost of the project.
Oh, go ahead.
Good. My recommendation would be that we do these things because they all translate to future-proofing the building and making the building more usable for its intended purpose. So,
My opinion is, I'd like to hear you sell me on the melting.
Yeah, that's
But-
my big thing.
But I can do, maybe I can live without the electrical, ports for the, maybe we're a little early on that.
and that might be the case. And
But I'd like to hear your arguments to support. Sorry.
So the snow melt system is specific to the front of the garage doors, basically going in and out of the operations building. If you ever tried to plow in front of a garage, what you wind up with is a snow pile. This is purely a way to enhance the readiness, or maintain the readiness and enhance the safety of the people using the building. It gives us an apron that is 20 feet out, 30 feet out.
Basically the length of the building, 190
Yeah.
feet.
Well, and it's not just the snow melt, it also changed it from,
Asphalt.
it's asphalt now, which we did to keep the cost down, but really the best thing, like if I was doing this for a big commercial facility that had a lot of trucks going in and out, I would do it in concrete. Because the asphalt, as the tires hit the same spots, it's going to fail there over years. If the concrete costs 10 times more than asphalt, yeah. Depends on, but somewhere between 5 and 10 times more. So a concrete apron is a much better thing because as the trucks come out, they'll be turning a little bit and you won't have, by the time they get on the asphalt, they won't be in the exact location where they would be if they came out of the door. So the biggest cost of this is not the snow melt system, it's going to concrete on a 30-foot concrete apron. The snow melt's nice, but that is, the concrete's a big chunk of this cost.
And there is already a snow melt system in the base bid specific to the main building and employee entrance, public entrance, and helipad. So the systems are in place. It's the idea of adding to an area. Right.
It's my understanding that there are pipes under the ground, and my concern, I've seen pipes break in here, and we move the tile, and we get to them and we repair them. Under concrete, we're going to be ripping everything up. Then they're going to have loss of use of that particular bay at that truck. And I have a real problem with this particular add-on item. You're not convincing me.
The pipes that they used to use for that, they don't use anymore. The type of piping they use now is extremely durable. I mean, everybody uses it.
Is it
for
steel?
For outside. No, it's not. Steel's where the problem is.
Yeah,
Steel or
yeah.
copper.
What is it made from?
It's a plastic, it's a type of
It's
plastic
like a
that's,
cross-linked polyethylene pipe, basically.
Yeah.
They're,
I would say it's the same, you would have the same concerns about that as you may have about the gas piping that's underground. You know, that gas piping simply, for the most part, doesn't leak. Unless you hit it, it doesn't leak. This is a similar kind of pipe.
Is that pipe encased within a pipe that's bigger, so there's room for expansion and contraction?
No, you can't do that. There's not a problem with expansion and contraction on this. You need the piping to be completely touching the concrete in order to have heat transfer. So I really don't, I don't see any real big concern with the life cycle of this piping of this system.
What is the life cycle?
Well, the expected lifetime, I don't know if they really give an end. I haven't,
found one yet.
yeah.
It's commonly known as PEX
PEX,
tubing,
right.
but that's a brand.
right,
Right.
right.
I know what PEX
Polyethylene.
is.
Yeah, that's what it
It
is
is.
commonly, but that's like
So it's a
saying
ribbed
Kleenex
piping.
versus tissue.
Yeah, and it's also, it's a glycol solution that runs through this, so which is antifreeze essentially. It's not going to.
Is it environmentally hazardous?
It's a closed loop system.
Yeah, it's a closed loop system.
If
It doesn't
leaks,
exhaust to.
is it
I
environmentally?
can't answer that off the top of my head.
Well, you don't want it to
It's
leak.
ethylene glycol, it has
Yeah.
its issues, but, it's like, you use it in your car's radiator, and if your radiator gets a leak, it leaks out.
Right, that's what it is. I don't see this as a risk in terms of the long-term maintenance side, the long-term failure. It's just-
Yeah,
It's a
guess
normal
I
thing.
assumed that all those things would be, they wouldn't be popular or marketable or
Right.
whatever. But
We're also using it
mine
in all
was-
the other ones.
Mine was the sticker price, so, and I'm warming up to it, excuse the pun.
That's good.
So, may I ask, do you mind if I of the team that's here, I mean, 3 of you do this all the time, do you know of failures?
No.
I mean, you've done this in dozens, if not hundreds of projects, and
Right.
do you know
The
of failures?
old
Something-
style, definitely.
Right.
The old style, when you did it with electric wires or you did it with, those failed all the
Right.
time.
Yeah, we have it at the Ag Center. It was built in 1990, something like that, and it's disabled. It's
Yeah.
electric wires
Right.
under brick. It broke all the time. It was being fixed every time it was used. It's absurd, so we don't use it. But that's the old
And
system.
again, like any product, it goes to the installation, but we've also tried to, in the areas where we're using it, ensure that we're removing the potential for someone to damage the system through the sleeving of penetrations into the concrete. So, I mean, as installed, if it's properly installed, this is not something that anyone here should ever have to worry about.
The failure you will have, though, is if you don't do concrete aprons.
Right.
There, I guarantee you will have a failure in 5 or 10 years. You will have, it'll just get more and more of a depression. And that, a little bit of a safety thing, a little bit of then it's gonna ice over, and if somebody falls, that's why we have snow melt on the sidewalks, is frankly, from a slip and fall standpoint, it just really makes sense.
Can you give me some idea how big this pipe is and
Very small.
Half or
Yeah.
3/4.
and how close together it is within the concrete?
6 inches,
Yeah.
something like that.
And then there's an insulation layer, the concrete, it's all designed based on the ambient temperature that's expected, and how much concrete area it's trying to cover.
And it's a separate loop from any
Yeah.
other system, and
Yeah.
obviously that loop doesn't open unless the temperature goes to
But
a
both
certain
temperature
level.
and moisture, so.
Is this checked in any way that there's no kinks in it before?
Yes.
Yeah.
installed to the
It's pressure,
manufacturer's.
and pressure tested before you pour, yeah, 'cause the last thing you want to do is pour the concrete and say, oh, this doesn't hold pressure. Yeah, no, it's a very common installation.
And what kind of insulation are you using? Are you talking a layer of topsoil, or are you talking
No,
pink?
there's a rigid insulation.
Yeah, it's the blue styrofoam is what typically goes under. In fact, I
Fiberglass.
specified it as the blue styrofoam, so.
No, it's a.
Foam. Like I say, this is the only thing that really bothers me in the entire bid process. I'm sensitive to the underground, inaccessible. Is there, you know, like when you put a system in a home, you have drains and things like that. Is there anything like that? So if a leak develops, we can shut it off or drain it, or so that we don't continue, almost like an oil spill in the middle of the ocean. It just keeps leaking.
No, you find, there's definitely a, if you lose pressure, the system is, tells you that. There's a warning on it, so.
And is there a way to shut off so that we're not losing that into the ground?
Yeah.
Is that
Each-
one valve or?
Each loop is independently valved.
Each loop?
And then you could shut down a loop and then back in the loop out until it's fixed.
Thank you.
I think just on the property casualty, this slip and fall thing, you have one of those every 5 years or 10, so that's another offsetting,
It is.
good thing.
And operationally, the people that would be, the slip and fall would be the ones that are responding to the
We
incident.
don't, something happened about
That's, with the county building closes, a lot of times workload's coming back in, for inclement weather. So it's a function of what we do, and it's important to keep us safe.
I'll be quite frank on it. I caught this at the end, we talked about it, but I would have put concrete there. I would have pushed for concrete, absolutely. And we actually caught it as the bids were out, and we said, okay, well, we're at it as an alternate, but it should be concrete. And I think it should be the snow melt as well. If we were starting fresh, it wouldn't be an alternate, we would just have it in the bid.
And
I feel that strongly.
The durability that Ned explained, that's the reason your service stations have concrete in front of the, all the pumps, for the very same reason, the durability of cars in the same position all the time and what have you.
I hear that the vast amount of the cost is cement, and I agree with going with cement. I understand about the divots that develop in the macadam. It happens in driveways in people's houses, much less big fire trucks. But I guess knowing that if a leak develops, we can turn it off. We don't have to dig it up and block doors. If it fails, and you shut it off.
Yes,
That
that's
can be an
correct.
option, that we don't have to dig everything up.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And there's more than one loop, so it might not affect the entire system too. It
Right,
just affects
but if
some.
there is a loop that is leaking, we can shut it off and not have to dig it up.
Correct.
Commissioner Imstead.
No, I don't have any questions, I just have a general comment of each category. The ceramic tile, I can speak to that personally, because 16 years ago, we built a laundromat in Palmyra, and we made a decision to put black and white ceramic tile with black grout on the floor, and that floor today looks just like brand new and has been easy to maintain. We could have made the decision to put VCT tile in there and be stripping and finishing it every 6 months, but we spent the extra money, so the money for the ceramic tile was definitely a wise choice. And you're right, we're talking about a long lifetime for this building, and that ceramic tile will last that lifetime, so that's a no-brainer there for the $35,000. I have to say that I was and still a little hedgy on the snow melt system. A lot of that is based on my bad experiences with the electrical systems in the past. We alluded to that here, but if you folks are the experts, if you think we should justify that additional cost, I would be inclined to agree. The charging stations, I'm just amazed that the federal government hasn't already told us that we have to do it, okay? But I would say if we don't have to do it, let's not do it. Because I don't think we're only beginning to see the implications of these electric vehicles coming down the road. I'm not so sure that that's gonna be as long a lasting an answer to our energy problems that it's being given to us today, so.
Commissioner, you could actually stub the electric at those locations and not put in the stations.
Oh, please let them in. That's something I
So, I mean, you
believe in.
could, you could identify where they would be and just stub the electric at that location and not put the stations in. And you may never put them in.
And maybe even a more basic approach would just be to run conduit and no electric to it,
Yeah, well, you could do that as well.
so that the provisions are there, so
So
we
you
don't
can
have to
feed
dig
it.
up the
And what's the
concrete.
cost of that?
Well, so this is a defined cost for the, complete installation. We'd have to work backwards on that one.
It would be a change order, but
Crediting and,
it would, I mean, what, to run conduit to 2 locations?
it's not 40,000, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a pretty small fraction of that. I don't know if it's 10 or 20%, something like that.
I don't know if that's, I'm not gonna be embarrassed because we have charging stations in front of our 911 center, but I personally just don't see that it has a real future when we find out the implications of the batteries and the raw materials that go into the batteries. And to me, it just doesn't make sense over the long haul.
Ned, excuse me, did you say it'd be about 20% of the?
That's just a guess, but yeah, it's something. But I tended to think, as you were, and just yesterday as we were talking about it, I will say I know it's tough to get employees at this point, and it did occur to me that having those there may be something that would be helpful in being able, if you're driving an electric car, being able to charge it at work.
We could put bike racks there too.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, electric bikes and regular bikes, I think those are all very practical.
If it's not added, but it's decided at some point, not today, but at some point in the coming weeks,
Adds to the
that it
cost.
could be
Change
a
order.
stub or a conduit or whatever, that
Yeah.
doesn't have to be set today, that could be a small change order.
Yes.
Or not be a change order.
Yes.
Is that
Probably to
correct?
the tune of $20,000.
And then you'd have an
so I
idea,
guess.
you could get an idea on what it is.
Yes.
Speaking to
We could,
Bart.
we'd go back to basically to Barton.
A
and say-
change order would cost $20,000.
Well,
No.
right now, it's an add of $140,000. We're saying we're gonna define what the cost would be to stub the infrastructure to it, and we could do it one of
So
two ways.
you'd be saving 20,000.
No, you would be saving $120,000, because you'd spend $20,000 towards the $140,000.
And that's a guess.
But that is a guess, I mean, please don't.
And there wouldn't be a charge for a change order at this point, would there?
No.
Oh, that's what she
Yeah, she's thinking.
No, there's not a charge for a change order.
No, no.
Not at this point. I mean,
Right now, it's not added in.
I'm just guessing that running conduit over there would be something like that. It's
Conduit.
pretty small, just running conduit and not wires and not.
I think it would be a mistake to not do that. We're trying, I was looking for an environmentally sustainable building without having the green designation. That was my goal. I had verbalized that earlier in the negotiations, and that is one of my reasons for questioning this underground heating. I'd just like to know, as a follow-up to that, what percentage of this add-on of 229,000, you said most of it is concrete, what is the percentage of concrete versus the,
I don't know. It isn't bid that way, it's bid as a whole thing. But I think most of the cost of that is the concrete, but I don't know the specific.
You're talking about a 30-foot by, what's the length?
190.
190-foot pad?
It's two of them.
Two of
Yeah.
them.
Just
So
it's a bunch of.
It's a lot.
Of
Concrete.
concrete and rebar, because we put mats of rebar in for the fire trucks.
okay, well, I can figure that out close then. Thank you, that'll help.
What kind of direction do you need beyond what you've got so far?
Well, which of those do you want to proceed with, I suppose, at this point, so that they can get back to the bidders and say, you're ready to go?
Yeah, and there are several options here. If there is consensus on what we want from an alternate standpoint, then we can move forward with taking formal action to award the low bidders the contracts.
I'd like to get a price, you know, on the, if it's roughly 20% or $25,000 or whatever that ends up being.
But we can't go back and get prices at this point. I mean, it's the bids are what they are. We can either say yes to the alternate or no.
Oh, I see. You just asked, okay. if we
Yeah,
could
so,
exchange.
and
And I'd leave that.
for me, I'm kind of hoping that we do make the decision today to award contracts, because at this point, we have the top superintendent for ECI, and they're ready to start, and they would be able to start and hopefully, you know, get work in this winter if it's not bad. And so I think it's with the, you know, all prices going all over the place and whatnot, it's very good for the project overall, which is very good, I think, for you know, Lebanon County to get this thing started and done.
So they could order their supplies at this price.
Right.
It's important to know, too, sometimes when you have alternates of this magnitude, the selection of the alternates may actually change the low bidder, and that's not the case here.
Does not.
And to
Commission-
add another layer, if I could, it helps me to zero in on the borrowing amount, knowing what you'll need, because next week we want to go into the bond market, hopefully on Tuesday or Wednesday, to get them sold.
Okay, let's,
based on
can I take,
amount.
yes.
May I ask one question? If I agree to go ahead with the alternate on the heating in the cement, would you agree to allow the solar hookups?
I would not.
Electric charging
Yeah.
hookups.
Well, okay,
I'm
electric.
not horse trading on that. I'll go with the snow melt concrete, but I'm not gonna go with the, at this point, with the electric. Next.
Well, yes, I'm in favor of the ceramic tile. Can we agree at this point to just to have the conduit run for the charging stations?
To remove this, to say no to this ad, and then request a change order.
Yeah.
Yes, we can do that.
I will compromise with
Oh,
that.
and I was good with that. I was hearing that you can't make, it was a up or down, yes or no on it, so that's why I.
Right.
That-
Writing the contract, we wouldn't include that, but we would, you know, quickly say, hey,
Okay,
guys, what's the
all right.
price for that?
Sorry, I missed that.
So when you let the contractor say, look, this is what the commissioners want to do with these charging stations, so we're gonna.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
And it certainly won't change who gets the bids.
Yeah, no, I'll go back to the engineer to find exactly what we're asking them to provide in change orders, or short, and we would have the ability to understand the appropriateness of that change order cost relative to what's being asked.
Good, all right.
So I'm confused. You're willing to just run an empty pipe and
Yeah.
nothing else? I mean,
Yeah, but it's very easy to install the charging stations. Obviously, there'll be a termination there that's accessible, and
Means we would not have to rip up the concrete, should.
Exactly.
Charging stations. It's all there, we're gonna go.
so when all of our fire trucks and our vehicles become electric, we'll just put those babies in.
Or some
I
of your-
think they were talking about it for employees.
Okay, so that, and where are you on the?
So
No,
if I can summarize,
Yeah.
I've heard Commissioner
Six
Phillips.
for public, 6 for employees.
Commissioner Phillips and Commissioner Ames are saying, okay with the ad for the ceramic tile, okay with the ad for the snow melt, not the ad of the charging stations, but eventually a change order to stubbing or to conduit to provide for future install if it's decided that way.
Yep.
Commissioner Litz, you are with tile, but then I'm not clear on snow melt and asking for the full charging station install.
Yeah, I was thinking that, I'm listening and I had to ask a lot of questions to get there, but I got to the point where if I can shut off a valve and stop a contamination leak
Okay.
into the ground, I'm willing to support the concrete change or addition. But I also believe we should go with at least Bob's suggestion to run everything to it and just not do the final hookup. But not, I think that's different than just running empty pipe. Am I wrong?
You could do it either way.
But I think that would be a good compromise.
If I may offer a little bit of insight on that. If we just run the conduit and don't put wires in, it gives us the ability to put the appropriate size conductors in that pipe once we know what kind of charging stations would go there if they're ever put
Yeah,
in.
you would never pull the wires down. You don't do that. They would, I mean, they wouldn't be tied off at the end, and it's just not the way you do it.
So in
You
layman's
would pull
terms-
wires in later,
in
once you know
layman's-
what the size is.
You'd make provisions for it at the box, you wouldn't run
Right.
you wouldn't run the wires there, because who knows, maybe today they're
That's true.
4 gauge and tomorrow they're 12 gauge.
From the location that it's designed now to be in the main building to where it's, the 2 points to where it's to go, visitor and employee, there would be conduit with a box, there would be pull string in there.
That doesn't make any sense to me. Why would they have bid it if they didn't know what we needed?
They do know.
They
There's
do
a
know.
design for the current understanding of what electric charging station is in 2021. If you put the conduit in now with pull string and decide in 2025 or 2030 to add electric charging stations, it's unlikely that the technology of 2021 will be the same then. So at that point then, you would have basically the raceway, you have the conduit, you have the ability to pull the material you need to for those stations at that time.
And at what was the date you said you would know what you need?
Whenever the decision is
Whenever the
made to
decision
install them.
is made to install them. I mean, right now, in 2021, there's the design that they bid to, that's $140,000 to install those charging stations. What you're asking, or what's being proposed here, is that we would not accept that and add that to the project. Once we're under contract with the contractors, we would define a change order of a raceway system, a conduit system, that is basically what's designed right now. I mean, right now, the conduit system is how we would get power to those locations. We're simply going to define for the contractors so that they understand exactly what we're getting in terms of the cost for that raceway system.
Okay, let me go back to, I accidentally said the word solar charging station. Was that considered, is that more expensive, or could we put a solar charging station there?
Yeah, we're not.
Wasn't considered.
It wasn't considered. I mean, I'm not sure of that technology for a vehicle charging station.
I've seen parking lots that are solar panels.
Those are large arrays. I mean, again, we could take this as far as you want to go, and we could look at how that system, I mean, we didn't investigate whether or not we were going to put in a solar photovoltaic array system to charge the charging stations. What we looked at was providing charging stations coming off of the building. If we don't add it now, if that's a path you want us to pursue, you would have the opportunity to pursue that under an alternate design. Right now, it's designed to basically come with home runs from the main building for the power that's at the main building.
All right.
So you know where we are?
I believe so.
Okay.
So if you want to award it, you may take action today to award that based on,
I'm fine with that if that's the pleasure
If it's
of
gonna expedite.
my colleagues.
Yeah, it's much better for the project to work.
We've been
Yeah.
promising this 911 center for a long time. It's time for us to deliver.
I'll make a motion to award the contracts as presented, and allow the, I don't know what you want to say, stubbing of pipes for the solar system at this point.
And
Can't do it that way.
if I may just kind of clarify the direction. The contract would be awarded with the ceramic tile and the snow melt at alternates included, and the request that we do a change order right away to stub out the pipe
Right.
pipe for the conduit for the charging stations.
Yes, that was my motion.
Okay.
And I'm pleased to second that motion.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or comment or question? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. So moved.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right.
Thank you.
Mission accomplished. Thank you all very much.
Total, yeah, that's a good question. Total bases, or total bid now is for the building itself.
Yeah, we have to take out the 140.
Was
Just for the building itself.
yeah.
29 million and,
Just not you.
We have to back out the 140 from that number.
hang on.
No, it isn't.
I don't have my laptop today, sorry.
Well, now, let me point out, though, the overall budget is still approximately 40 million, because the rest is design, technology, furnishings, all of that. Land purchase
And
was in that
contingency.
number.
We still have a good contingency.
In addition to that number.
So I don't want the impression that this went from 40 to 29.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't remember exactly what that was. It was 39 and change, or roughly 40.
Yeah, it was just about 40, the overall budget stays just about 40
But,
million.
but that number isn't changing as a result of these bids.
Doesn't add.
And we're doing that. Only thing we're backing out is this.
Just get a final number, so they're gonna want that. You're gonna want this 29 number.
All right. The total building price is 295,444,460. 29,544,460.
And please note that the technology costs will be on top of that, approximately 15 million.
Well,
right?
there's technology inside the building for the 911 and so on. Then the radio, there's a radio component that we're going to do also. And I might as well talk about that a little bit now, is that there is opportunity to use American Rescue funds for radio handhelds, mobiles, the end user radios, towers, things
So,
like that that
If
have
I
been
if I
used.
may just give you a high-level overview of the direction we're trying to go very quickly,
Mhm.
is I'm going to sit down with Ned very shortly, probably tomorrow, if we have it done, and put together a draft presentation for the commissioners on where in this building we can apply American Rescue Plan money to help offset some of the initial costs of this before we
Thank
borrow.
you.
Okay? The same thing with the radio system. In fact, we're following the lead of some other counties in the state that have used American Rescue Plan money to subsidize the cost of these radio systems. That's gonna save over half of the costs to the taxpayers locally of our radio system, which is gonna be huge, if not more. So,
Couldn't be a better use for that
Yeah.
one, as far as I'm concerned.
you know, and we're also looking at, the sustainability of this is important. All this stuff continues to cost money, so we're trying to make sure we build our infrastructure in such a way that we can support the private sector as well. Leveraging those types of partnerships allows us to make this cost-effective for everybody and lessen the burden to the taxpayer. So we're working hard to make it cost-effective in the long term.
And I'll go, I don't think I'm too far on a limb here, but say that some of the utilization of this American Rescue money toward this project, being it radio or the building component, because there are some areas of the building that we believe are eligible for that.
Training and that sort of thing?
Yeah, will effectively reduce the borrowing amount. I can't say it's gonna reduce, your debt service so, in a significant way, but overall, instead of borrowing, for example, I'll say, please don't anybody hold me to these numbers, but instead of borrowing 50 million, it may be that you're borrowing 45 million or 43 million or something like that. Those, though, those numbers are dependent on what they're gonna work on.
And did I hear yesterday somewhere that the state is looking at us as a pilot for others when it comes to training facilities and that sort of thing?
I'm not aware of that, but
Somewhere I picked that up.
happy to invite them.
Let's not put that out till we know for sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that may have come from.
Okay, anything else for today?
That's a lot.
No, I just, as a general comment, thank you. I think cooperatively, we've come up with what probably is the best possible solution for Lebanon County at best possible price, and that's what we set out to do. So thank you for all the efforts that you put into making that happen, and I'm proud to play some small part, just one vote in making that happen, so thank you.
I'd just like to say one thing, too. There's an old adage that an architect is only as good as the client. And I have to tell you that from speaking for the entire team, working with Bob Dowd has been a wonderful experience. This gentleman is so competent. I'm just happy that he's here in Lebanon County.
So thank you for that, but we already knew it.
You're not getting to leave.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, well, do we know yet if any of the infrastructure money in this recently passed bill will be applicable toward this project?
That's on my radar, and I hope that it will. I have no idea, though.
No, we don't.
That's a long bill.
We don't have full guidance on the ARPA just yet. We have initial guidance on it. So the whole country's still waiting for Treasury to come out with detailed guidance on that. So the infrastructure bill having just, over the weekend, probably months till we know.
But there's a hope of that.
There's always.
Always.
I would really like maybe for the infrastructure bill, if that comes about, that we can do a solar electrical hookup there. I mean,
Fantastic.
I would be extremely pleased with that, so please keep that on your radar.
And there may be opportunities to actually get charging stations paid for from that bill as
Yeah.
well, so.
That is something high on my priority list. I think I actually have, and I'd like to share that with you afterwards, an article that I clipped out, I don't know, it could have been 7 or years ago or something, using that technology, and I know it's improved since then. I truly believe in that technology, and I'd like to share that with you for something to consider.
I think from the floor, motion to adjourn?
Did we call the vote on that? I don't remember. Did we?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we did.
I moved to adjourn.
Second.
So moved, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
We definitely voted.
Yeah, we did.
Nice stuff said about Bob.
What's that?